Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Daily Tip Show. Today we're going to be talking about creating a home office mindset. I don't know about you, but we're now several months into lockdown, and are you finding that your mindset is perhaps not as clear, not as focused? Are you finding that working from home has become comfortable and therefore you're not getting as much done? With the hot weather that we've had recently, and it's been beautiful over this lockdown period, are you finding that that's affecting you? The rooms are too hot? Hello, my name's Gary Setterfield, and my co-host today is Mr. Sukhi Wahiwala.
Hello guys, and thank you very much for following again, episode 14. I can't believe it, Gary, but we have a power-packed episode for you today.
Well, Sukhi, today we're looking at creating a home office mindset. And what I mean by that is I've been talking to a lot of the Inspired Tribe, and they've been phoning us, texting us, and also people I've been talking to outside. And a lot of people are becoming comfortable with this working at home. Yet they're also finding that their productivity has been really, really high, but now it's starting to wane. So I'm wondering if we can perhaps look at, like we did back in episode 2, where we talked about creating that positive vibe, that productive environment. Can we perhaps bring back some of those tips and look at other tips to deal with the weather, the environments, areas that they can call their own?
Yes, Gary. Do you know, this is so powerful, because what we found is within the Inspired Tribe and the whole of our mastermind program, and everybody else who's following us now new to this Daily Tips Show program, please do subscribe and like. Thankfully, your support has been amazing. We've been growing very week on week for everybody. So our principle of conversation, yes, absolutely, there has been some serious issues with once upon a time, right at the start of the lockdown period, a few months back. And by the way, this is a practical information that can last even after a lockdown. It's about getting your mindset right for a home office or being able to work satellite in some form. So we covered this in episode 2 when we structured a few conversations around DFT with principles of the day. We covered it with daily focused time, which is basically the principles of the clarity and factor, the factual side of DFT. Now, that was in episode 2, but also if you want to have a bit more of an overhang of how to bring your brain into focus and also get clarity in your mind as well, look back at episode 13. We're in 14, so just episode 13, it's going to be a mind-blowing for yourself. And we really appreciate your support through this series and the response and the love we're receiving back as well. So thank you very much, everybody. So creating that focus, interesting. So there's a few practical things that one could do first. Let's just set the scene for a moment, if I can, Gary. The first thing is that we've used to working in offices. This is for anybody who's creating a home office. Offices, out and about, being in a car, delivering, etc. And nowadays, people are expected to, I was just talking to somebody with reference insurance today, and they're still talking from a satellite position. I was talking to somebody 3 days ago with a quotation, and they were in Burnley. And today I was speaking to somebody who was in Middlesbrough. So they were not at all communicating with each other personally. It was just like a call center in essence. But all the information was on a central CRM system. So whether you've got a CRM system or not, that's not the case we're talking about here. We're trying to get the mindset focused today. So a few practical steps that I would really, really advise, I think, to all of our crew and all of our tribe out there is to have a designated area to work with on a daily basis. This means an environment within the house somewhere, even if it's in a bedroom, but away from the bed, and somewhere, even if it's on a sit-down sofa or a chair, and creating a space that you can physically put your laptop and PC or whatever it is you're working with onto. Now, the second thing is to remember that sometimes, Gary, there was a story that you were sharing, and I'm going to lean back to you in a moment, which you spoke about when you were with one of your dog walking friends. And he was having a challenge. And in our business growth accelerator and the things of that nature, I regularly share with gratitude about creating a designated area. That means literally the simplest of things of marking it off. Gary, please, back to yourself.
Yes, actually, it's one of my friends, and he was saying that he was having he was working from home. He normally works in an office. He's now working from home, working on the dining table, or actually a little table in the corner of his room. And as all good partners do, his wife kept interrupting because he was in the dining room. So I suggested, as we do, Sukhi, well, how about getting some masking tape and just putting a 3-foot area around you? That becomes your office. Because he was having troubles thinking about walking into the lounge or walking into the dining room. I said, well, make it an office space. Just put a little square around your chair and you walk into your office and you walk out of your office. When you're in your office, it's as though you're at work. Nobody disturbs you. When you're out of the office, then it's free time.
This is so important. The fact is, it's not necessarily just yourself who, some people think that it's about myself and I need the space and I need this. Yes, it is. You need to get the mindset right that you've actually walked into a work environment. But on the same token here, what we're looking for is somebody doesn't disturb you. That's the key. So for example, even in our environments here right now, I'm blessed to be in a space that I can actually designate to an office space. And the door outside physically has a do not disturb. There is a recording going on the outside. So it's just about having that respect factor for everybody else in your life. And that physical drawing, which you said, drawing masking tape, use masking tape, and please do not use gaff tape. It will ruin your carpet. I'm just telling you. Gary's having a giggle there as well. The reality is that you need to use masking tape. That's the white kind of materially, not material, it's like more like paper. That is what you mark out your floor with. And obviously do yourself a favor, get yourself into the mindset that when you step into this square, like Gary was saying, this is your office space. So step 2, by the way, step 1, when you try that, you will realize immediately how it affects your brain and how it allows you to know that you've got kind of a bit of a boundary between the rest of the family and yourself at that time. Step 2, which I'd very, very clearly state, is for you to be in a position where you can think about, where am I facing? What's my aspect of this particular desk space that I've got? If it's basically facing the middle of the room, then try to maneuver yourself around so you can see maybe a window in front of you, just to give you that little space of thought. And if you're in a space where if you're in a room where the only way you can work on is against a wall, it sounds a bit silly, but try turning it around and putting yourself against the wall and facing even towards an open door. This is Feng Shui basis, but I'm not going into the depths of Feng Shui at the moment. But it's about turning yourself away into a space where you can see your thoughts coming in and out and get much more focused within your work process. Another step that I've worked at over the years, which I think is super powerful, is, you know, when you have that mind fuzz going on, Gary, you know, when you sit there and you get a mind fuzz. I mean, you've been talking about a few people who've had that situation, haven't you?
Yeah, so a lot of people are saying that the weather particularly has been causing them to lose clarity. They've been getting hot, bothered, that sort of thing. So, I mean, apart from the normal thing of opening windows or doors, what else could they do there?
Brilliant. So with the mind fuzz, this is what, when you get a heavy head and you can't think straight, you need to be tanked up with water. One of the key things that we always talk about in all of our trainings, 100%, is that there are kind of, we could say, 3 key elements that we require to live. The first one is, yes, this air, this oxygen that we bring in. And if that oxygen has got a slightly higher temperature, your own core temperature starts to rise, and it takes away processing power from your brain to maintain heat loss, heat dissipation from your body. So the best way to keep that working is regular sips of not cold, room temperature water, would you believe? Just like that. Because if you start drinking cold iced water, you heat up quicker. Keeping it in the cool temperature, just like a room temperature level, it keeps you functional and doesn't have to work out whether it's too cold, too hot. So without going too much into the health benefits of it, keeping a lukewarm water, but actually time yourself and put, like what Gary was showing a moment ago, you'll see in a minute when it's his go to talk, basically a tube bottle, and actually count how many of them you're drinking and keep it regular and sipping at regularly amounts. Yeah. This way will keep your second most important element, which is your first is air, second is water, and the third is food. Always keep some form of snacks by you, but bear with me. Don't make them heavy snacks, make them bite-sized snacks that don't have to take the energy away from your brain once again and start to focus on digestions. Does that make sense? My other thing that I found, which has been really, really effective with so many people who have slight lethargic feelings when they're at home working, is reduce milk intake, or should I say foods, heavy foods in the mornings, because keep it light and keep it bright. What happens is you can be able to focus much better. So another step would be is to ensure that you've got a kind of like a pack of food next to yourself, which are small things, not biscuits and stuff like that, you know, stuff that's been beautifully prepared, like a simple sandwich, maybe cut into 4, so you can take a quarter at a time. Try to keep away from your biscuits, because there's a lot of sugar, lots of high spikes and low spikes. Try to keep as natural as possible. If anything, if this lockdown has given us a gift, with gratitude, and we're not taking anything away from how the severity of the lockdown is, because we've all lost individuals and we know people who have lost in families. So our heart goes out to everybody there with the COVID-19 virus. Please remember that we have at least learned how to prepare our food better. So, you know, try to give yourself a bit of time just to keep something moving in your mouth, but just enough to keep it working. Drink lots of water. And most importantly, please, please, please ensure you take deep breaths. Because when we're working, we tend to hold our diaphragm and slouch over. So this is also another thing that keeps the mindset focus detracted. So we need more oxygen. So we need to also lean back a little bit and take some deep breaths every now and again. This really acts as though you're recharging your brain cells, because we're trying to keep our mindset active, which is basically keeping, obviously statistically keeping our mindset active, watered and oxygenated. There is something else I want to add to this as well, probably a completely different step. If you ever want to read out on this, we're about to dedicate probably episode 16 or 17 specifically to a brain compound and that was found, that was basically called BDNF. Now, if you want to research into this yourself a little bit, there's a book written by, if I just pull out to here, it's basically, the book is called Spark, and it's designed with a yellow cover. If I can just show you the cover there, that's kind of what it looks like. And this basically is written by Dr. John Ratey and Eric Hageman. This particular book talks about BDNF, which is brain derived. So B is brain, D is derived, neurotropic is the N, and factor, so BDNF. This is a natural serum. You could say an elixir, a fertilizer for your brain that gives you supercharged ability to do something as soon as you have done some exercise. So what I found is regularly getting up every 45 minutes to an hour and physically doing some form of light exercise, but getting yourself into a bit of a pant so that your air is coming into your lungs correctly and keeping your exercise. What happens is then you get a natural release of BDNF into the lower half of your brain, and all of a sudden it works like a fertilizer and just gives you a spark, which is why it's called Spark, gives you the ability to be cognitive. So if you're feeling lethargic and you know you've got to do something like an Excel, or you've got to do a real report on an audit, get up, give yourself some squats, run around a little bit. Sounds a bit funny, but then take a seat, drink a tank of water, and just revel in that sort of spark that you get there. Back to you, Gary.
Brilliant, Sukhi. Just talking about getting ready though, and being prepared mentally. I mean, what about physically getting ready? I mean, we've had beautiful weather. We don't necessarily want to sit in suits, although I have heard of people sitting with just a jacket and shorts on. I mean, what is the power of getting dressed in the morning? I'm not going to stand up now, folks, so it's okay. But what is the power of getting dressed and preparing yourself like that?
This is super important, Gary, and a real relevant question. I am a very strong believer of getting ready for work, for office. For example, in my particular case, in a humble way, I'll have to do my beard because my beard's actually this long and I tend to pack it up. So for me, not to do it is something that I classify as a distraction. Does that make sense? Unless I'm in a complete flow mode and I'm not in what we classify as a real office formal environment. So for me, what I do is I will 100% always dress in what I classify as uniform. And you've known me long enough now, Gary, that my uniform means black. And I love the shades of black, 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 and black as well. And everybody says to me, you don't have much color. So here you are. There's a nice little dot of red. And this is also another dot of red. This is Luke clothing, by the way, just in case. It's one of my favorites. Very, very powerfully designed, well kept as well. So always have a set standard to yourself. So if you're in summer, most summer offices tend to release the opportunity or necessity of having your, what we classify as the tie. But wear a shirt. You know, do get, I'm sure you're showering anyway, but do get showered specifically under the context of believing you're going to work. Because if you've got a designated area in your house that no one disturbs you in a time frame, which we'll talk about in a moment, it really helps you getting completely ready. So I would personally. Now, there are some mischievous I's in the conversation. I, if anybody's new to this game, it's what we call DISC, which is the I is the dominant, the influencer, then we have the S for stability and C for compliancy or conscientiousness. But the I is the deceiving character, the jovial one, who will probably do something like, I remember seeing on YouTube, there was a gentleman put an advert out and said literally a Velcroed front of a suit with a tie, everything sat there with a shirt stuck in there. And it's literally just like a canopy you put on, you Velcro around your neck, Velcro around your arm, Velcro around your arm so it doesn't come off. you're going to have a meeting, and after you've had your meeting, you just pull it off and pop it down, and you're in your Bermudas. So these sort of things are quite funny. But in a more serious context, always please give yourself a dress code for work. Now, there is a further point that I really need to ensure that's very important to understand. It's really assistive to the mindset. It's about setting a time for it all. Way back in episode 2, I believe, of the Daily Tips show, we spoke about the 70-20-10, which is a factor method of the DFT, which is daily focused time, where it allows you to segment off your day. What you'll notice, and I mentioned it then, I'll repeat it again just a little bit very quickly, is that you will do more work in a more compressed time. What we've found is people are trying to stretch the hours from the 9 till 5 or 9 till 6. And what they find themselves is completely exhausted and fatigued on 2 or 3 different levels. And I'll talk about screen fatigue in a moment. But they get themselves fatigued mentally, emotionally, because of the hot weather, because of the fact that they're actually doing so much more work. Does that make sense? So it's very important to allow yourself a dedicated set regime. Please watch back to episode 2. We'll probably put a link into the base there. Don't forget, please, to support us in our mission of free information for the world that can really create change in the world. Please do subscribe. Please help us achieve our first goal of 300 plus subscribers. Please do subscribe. And then please, if you can, like and comment if you feel that you're wanting to share and contribute to this particular show. Give us some thoughts that we can do. So back to what we're talking about, with always focus your mind as often as you possibly can with a set regime to time, and reduce your hours of physical work. Office and employers don't have a problem with individuals who are achieving all of their work. They have a problem when people are being truant but not completing their work on time. So if you can schedule yourself to 4 or 5 hours in a day with regular gaps and breaks, you will find yourself far more efficiently. The human mind cannot multitask, so reduce the multitasking. If you want to hear about that, again, episode 13, when we spoke about the DFT, about multitasking as well. And I've also, with gratitude, done a TED talk. So just go on to SukhiWahiwala.com and you can watch the actual TED talk there as well, with over 300,000 views, which I'm very, very proud of. Thank you all for your support there as well. So get focused by not multitasking, by reducing your task list so you can get activity done, and setting yourself times for the activities to be done by. But the key here, Gary, is for everybody to have set scheduled times for rest in their brain. That means also to get up, have walks, go and do something different, and come back like you would do in a normal work environment. That means every 45 minutes, you should have at least a quick break. And if you're really in a cognitive flow, not to break that flow and to stop every hour, 60 minutes or 90 minutes, just to get up and have a walk around. Water yourself regularly, so you'll be going to the bathroom breaks quite regularly. We call them comfort breaks. These things actually help you. And when you do go for those comfort breaks, if you've got other people in the family, do talk to them as well, and chat and conversation, but give it in a time schedule. So what I do is I regularly, with these mobile phones, if I'm about to take a break, I put myself a 5-minute timer and I go for a walk and I go and talk to somebody, and my bleep bleep goes and says, oh, great conversation, guys. I'm going back into the office. See you in a bit. And so these sort of things really, really help, Gary. Does that make sense?
It does, totally, Sukhi. Thank you. I'm just conscious of the time, because the Daily Tip Show is all about just bite-sized chunks of helping information to help you deal with the daily challenges. So maybe we could have one last little point regarding the desk space and maybe different types of desk.
Yes, Gary, absolutely. So the most important thing is don't find yourself slouching, and don't try to do your office work sitting on a sofa leaning forward like this. Now, we're not all gifted or with the space that they can do this with, so we make do with whatever's possible. Try to possibly use a higher desk. Even a dining room table works really well. Alternatively, it sounds a bit funny, but stack some desks, some items together. If you've got 2 tables, put them together, and you'll surprise yourself at how comfortable that is to sit at. If you've got an upright chair and you sit at the table, some people have 2 tables, so you can pop 2 coffee tables on top of each other. Obviously, please keep it safe, and then pop your laptop on top of it, and you'll have such a brilliant eye level of conversation. In this day and age, we're doing a lot of VoIP. So we're communicating a lot with individuals on the basis of this kind of communication via Zoom, Skype, etc. So in these situations, we must be at a good height so we can see each other like we have here. Always remember, and if you ever want to set this up, look at episodes, I think 3 and 4, and we spoke about how to Zoom call properly and get the best out of your days. But the principle is try to get yourself a desk that's a proper desk to sit up. If not, use a dining room table. But please don't slouch, because it really changes the meridians of your body and you just can't think straight. These are all elements. If you're finding yourself dipping in and out of focus, every one of these elements could be one of them or all of them that are contributing to this. So if you do a little bit adjustment here and adjustment there, what happens when we get ourselves fully focused? And the other thing that I wanted to talk specifically about is there are these actual tables, which we spoke about, where you can actually lift the tables, which are standing tables or sitting tables. They aren't cheap. So they're around about 100, 150 pound plus, up to, near £1,000. But the principal understanding is that you could sit as a designated height, work perfectly okay, keeping the carpal tunnel problems and tinnitus and things of that sort of nature, and the finger problems at bay. And then you could also, at some stage, work 45 minutes like that, and then you can pull it up to a standing stage and work standing for 45 minutes. These sort of things really, really, really work.
That's fantastic. And as I say, I just wanted to conclude, but I'm going to let you finish off that point, because I just want you to finish that just before we go on to the Power Tip Roundup and just to close off this section.
Okay, so I hope this has been really helpful for you. So do take one of these opportunities to just push yourself in that space and try to do something about it. But screen fatigue, this is a real issue. I suffered from it myself, looking at the screen consistently day in, day out. So some of the 2 low-hanging fruits or 2 or 3 low-hanging fruit benefits you can get from this is a bit of a bonus conversation to keep your focus high. Is the first thing, my second daughter, she basically purchased some of these glasses, which are classified as they're called blue light emitters. So if you pop them on, everything around you looks absolutely normal, but the screen becomes less blue, which basically means that you're not getting so much of that blue reflection in your eye, which is an unnatural element because the sun tends to have a yellow hue of some kind. Yeah, so that really assists you with fatigue. And I know some of our actual team members, we've been advising them to get hold of these blue light reductions. It also helps you sleep well, by the way, if you're watching TV and stuff late. It's unlensed and it just has a coating on there which takes away the blue glare. Very important. One of the second things is that flexibly look at, if you have a Mac, they have a true tone facilitation. Switch that on. If it's a 20, I think 13 or 14 onwards, you've got an opportunity to create a true tone facilitation. Do switch that on. What happens with true tone is it keeps it connected to your surroundings. So if you have a high yellow ambience around you, it increases the blue lights. But if you've got a a bluey haze around you, increases the yellow light. So less contention on your eyes, makes it look as natural as possible. Now, if you don't have, obviously, a Mac, then get yourself those glasses. They really help. There are the old ways of doing it, of getting a blue screen, a glare reflector, which pops it on. Let me explain why these things actually cause a problem. One is there's a flicker ratio coming from your actual screen, the LCD, the LED, whatever it is you're using. The other thing is if you have a natural light in-house, these days we've moved to LED lights, which tend to have their own flicker ratio. Then sometimes we're using things like those Mickey Mouse lights, which we talk about, which are the daylights that we talk about, sharpening up the brain and bringing up the image for recordings. So those also are LED based. So now you can think about how many LEDs are flickering at different ratios. Your brain is getting overpowered and fatigued with this. So please keep that in mind, because the outcome of this is you get a headache, you get strain, you get completely tired, and all these elements in there as well. So I hope that's helped. Reduction of time looking at the screen really helps. And what really helped me considerably is when I am actually recording for people or on a Zoom or a Skype, I actually look at the dot, which is the camera, instead of looking much at the screen, because then I'm not necessarily being susceptible to the flicker ratio. So this is a real thing. Screen fatigue, Zoom fatigue, whatever you want to call this, it's real. So please be very, very aware of yourself, and please look after yourself and think about how you can manage this time frame. All of these elements together will give you the focus and the start of a real good, perfected home office space and positive mindset.
Sukhi, absolutely amazing. Some fantastic points there, some amazing tips. I will be going through a power tip roundup very, very shortly, but before I do, please everybody, do share these daily tip shows with your friends, with family. Remember to follow Sukhi on his official media channels, Sukhi Wahiwala official social site, on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And remember that these are bite-sized chunks to help you and to help others. So here we go with the power tip roundup for today. In creating a home office mindset, we first looked at power tip 1, which was a designated area to work in, away from the bed, somewhere away in a room, a dining room, a lounge, wherever it may be, but creating a specific space. We talked about taping off the floor. We talked about walking into what supposedly is an office area and then walking out of it and allowing people to understand that. Then we talked about, in power tip 2, we then talked about where am I facing? And we talked elements about feng shui. Are you facing a window ideally? If you have to sit against a wall, could you maybe turn the desk around and face away from the wall? Or if it has to be against a wall, could you have an open door? Creating a space to work in. We then looked at power tip 3, which was about mind fuzz, and having things like water readily available, drinking regularly as we do, having a water bottle here. There are other brands available, of course. Having deep breaths, regular breaths, deep breaths with air, because that's a fundamental. And then the third part was having snacks, bite-sized chunks that you can eat on, that don't take a lot of chewing, but which are less heavy foods and lighter. Even a sandwich and splitting up into 4 or 6 slices or squares, so that you just bite-sized chunks rather than large food. Then we talked in tip 4 about BDNF, and this is where my teeth may work, in brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is basically like a fertilizer for the brain. A little bit of exercise will help stimulate the mind and will help the brain with clarity. We then talked in 5 about getting prepared, getting dressed. You may have seen on YouTube, and Sukhi mentioned it, where somebody had a wraparound collar and sleeves and everything, and then they just rip it off. Wouldn't suggest that necessarily, but it works. Make yourself feel as though you're going to work. Have a dress code. In point 6, we talked about a dedicated time regime, and we looked back at, we talked back about episode 2 and episode 13 with DFT. 4 or 5 hours of consistent work is as good as 8 or 9 hours of backs and forwards and disruptions. Regular breaks, every 45 minutes if you can have it, but remember, no more than about an hour and a half. Then in step 7, we talked about desk spaces and types, standing spaces, standing desks, stacking them, so that although we're doing a lot more calls on voice, Zoom, Teams, etc., have this eye contact. Look at the screen, look at the camera, and we'll come to that in step 8. And then finally in step 8, we talked about screen fatigue. A lot of us now are working more on VoIP, so where we're talking through the internet, through phones, watching cameras, watching computers. They all have different flicker rates. So a couple of points that Sukhi raised to help you with that is having some glasses which are blue light glasses. They don't color, but they just take away the reflection. If you've got certain computers, they have what's called a true tone setting. See if you've got that, and if you haven't got it on your computer, and I think it was from later models of the computers, then look at screens which will go over your screen to protect you. So that's it from today's Daily Tips Show. I hope you found it interesting and fascinating. I hope those tips have been useful. And until next time, stay safe, look after yourself. Remember to subscribe, like, and bring comments. And if you've got any questions, then please do leave them in the comment box below. Take care, everybody. Bye.